This is for the protesters against the First Amendment in Berkeley, those yelling about the Russian conspiracy or blaming Hillary for what she lost. Regarding the insistence that we voters for Trump are idiots or uneducated. We evidently were smart enough to figure out that regardless of what the media commentary was, that every poll announced showed this was always going to be about turnout. We were smart enough to find the polling places. We had our IDs ready to vote. We didn't hit the streets like a mob, burning property and physically attacking anyone who believes what you think is wrong. Then after, we didn't demand we have a second chance to turn out. We were more aware than the so-called educated college students, let alone politicians, including smug Republicans with no backbone, analysts, and reporters who were so arrogant they insulted the actual voters they needed to get elected. We don't blame people who did the only thing America asks you to do as a citizen. I do not believe many of the 40% of registered voters were Trump supporters. Look in the mirror and blame who you see for taking citizenship for granted. If you did vote, then great. This is aimed at the 40% that thought they could pretend to care and block traffic instead of doing something positive that would actually make a difference. We also still believe in the First Amendment to defend your right to free speech, even if you no longer believe in it. Free speech has no hate speech exception. Sorry if you were under that impression. Since you couldn't bother to vote and were shocked to find out how we elect leaders, you must not have a clue what the Constitution means. Maybe you can spend time reading instead of going to a college that is more interested in training parrots than people. There is no grand conspiracy needed. No Russian connection, no Obama wiretap, no fault to Hillary Clinton, and no fault of the voters, even those that didn't participate. No alternative facts were used, no danger from Facebook or YouTube. Why he won is the media that reported facts and rest of the time did commentary that did not reflect the data in front of them. In short, the media we rely on to keep politicians in line instead assured everyone Trump couldn't win. Only 2 legitimate polls I am aware of that showed a double-digit lead was after the Democratic convention and 2 weeks before the election. Both disappeared the next week. Yes, she was almost always in the lead, but usually within the margin of error. Until 2016, every reporter, analyst, politician would tell us controlling expectations was important to keep your voters motivated. For 3 months, we were told she couldn't lose, ticking off Trump people while telling you it was all decided. It was insane, and while Hillary did nothing to change the narrative, it was out of her hands. Media was in a feeding frenzy. Media reported that Trump signs were being taken, and people were not only replacing them, but was taking steps to stop it from happening again. That is true. What the media failed to notice was that Hillary voters were so unmotivated they took steps to steal instead of defend or advocate for their person. While on the other hand, the Trump supporters were so motivated they took time to replace the signs, and in one case cemented it into the ground so that no one could steal it. Others booby-trapped theirs. That says motivation to me, yet the media still assured she couldn't lose. When you have 2 awful choices and one must win, if you don't have to vote, who would? Anti-Hillary voters were motivated to turn out to vote, and they were going to vote for Trump. Anti-Donald supporters was assured it would never happen. This from people we were supposed to trust for honest information. They betrayed that trust, and today they are trying to muddy the waters by pushing Russia conspiracy or fake news or something about Comey. In fact, they are so reckless that instead of taking the blame, they have created this idea that freedom of speech is dangerous. When you have a bunch of parrots regurgitating only what professors tell you, then they are going to over-rely on people thinking for them. That brings us to the Berkeley riots. Freedom of speech was the one thing all Americans can agree on. We gave protection to reporters to protect freedom of speech, and they have arrogantly used it to a point that students see freedom of speech as hate speech. We are rapidly reaching a point that we either enforce freedom of speech, leading to a tragedy along the lines of the Vietnam War. I don't want that, so we all had best start thinking long and hard just how important the First Amendment is and insist that students be taught tolerance. The moms are going to have to be addressed. Would we rather let government and law enforcement teach it? Or will parents take the time to make sure kids understand that freedom of speech is the one amendment that is not to be threatened? It would be easier if we got the media to admit and address the damage they caused from their false commentary, issuing prophecies instead of reality analysis. I do not see any chance of that. The very foundations of the United States rest on freedom of speech. Every other amendment is worthless without this. So parents, do something. Sit down with your kids. Explain to them how important freedom of speech is and why it is.